Now, most of the FMCG companies have come out with their Q3 numbers. Let's look at what's the trend that's actually shaping up in the FMCG business. Let's start with the first one, and the most important one is rural demand. We have seen softness coming in rural demand for most of the companies in the last couple of quarters. Q3 was a similar trend where rural slowdown had even continued. But most of the companies have highlighted that they are seeing some bit of a green shoot coming in terms of rural demand, and they expect to start seeing a recovery coming in rural demand in Q4 as well as from FY24. Maybe we'll start seeing a recovery. So that's a positive point coming in there. Now, Dabur too said that, rural growth was lagging the urban markets, but for the second consecutive quarter in a row. But they believe that this demand slump that we've seen coming in, that is seeing a recovery coming in, and that is the worst has bottomed out for rural demand. HO2 had given a similar highlight coming in terms of the rural markets as well. And what they said was, they are showing some signs of recovery, improvement coming in the slowdown as well. Now, Imami, which has the most exposure in terms of the FMCG companies for rural demand, around 40 to 50% of their sales are from rural demand. Now, that company also too said that yes, we saw some sluggishness in rural demand coming in Q3. Right now also it's a bit sluggish, but there is a sign of gradual improvement coming in for the company, and overall that indicates that most FMCG companies are going to be seeing a recovery, actually will start coming in for rural demand going forward as well. While on the other hand, actually Britannia was one of the exceptions in this thing, because Britannia said that their rural performance had been better than the industry, as they'd seen an expansion coming in terms of their reach, and they have started increasing their rural reach. So that is something that had overall supported in terms of the company, in terms of their rural demand trends. And that is why Britannia managed to post a good set of numbers coming in as well. Let's move on and talk about the second point, that is urban demand. Now, that was quite resilient. That supported a lot of companies in terms of growth and, offset the pressure of a rural slowdown that was there for most of the companies. And that is what was one of the factors that you could say was coming into play for most of the companies which have a decent exposure to the rural urban markets, a lesser exposure to the rural market. So urban market, what was the second point? Urban demand was quite resilient in Q3 FY23 for most of the companies. Now, let's move on and talk about the next point that we have is in terms of the winter demand. Now, winter demand on winter products. Now, what we saw coming in was winter started late. So, yes, there was an impact coming in on winter products, the sale of winter products. Whether you look at Imami, HUL2 highlighted that, their winter products, the sales started a bit late. So, there was an impact of that coming in Q3. But what we could see coming in going forward will be that, yes, in Q4, the winter continued also till now, right? In January also, we had seen a winter stay. So that means that some impact of that would come in Q4 as well. So yes, that's the next point that we're talking about. Moving on, margins. We have seen a sequential improvement coming in terms of the margins for all FMCG companies, most of them as of now, which have reported their numbers so far. So sequentially improvement coming in margins because costs have started reducing. So that factor has already started seeing, and this will continue to improve going forward as well, is what the word coming in from the street and analysts as well. Now, packaged foods companies, they saw and actually did reasonably well compared to more companies that are faced towards the home care and personal care segment. So yes, packaged food companies have done quite well. Like you could take an example of Britannia has done quite well. Their products have done well. While in terms of home care, personal care segments, they have done well, but not as well as the FMCG companies. And lastly, let's talk about the discretionary spends. When you look at the paint companies, October was good for them. Let's have a breakdown. So October was good. November, sluggish demand. December and Jan, now companies are saying they've started seeing an improvement coming in. So paint companies, whether Asian Paints, Berger Paints, Kansai, Narrow, similar highlights that are coming in from these companies. So that's a gist or a roundup of FMCG companies that have reported their numbers so far.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.